Welcome everyone. Today it is the 13th of April. This afternoon or this morning the government announced that the Three Waters legislation will be modified. Instead of 4 large regional entities, there will be 10. Now, in the end of this video, which is about how to create fair taxation system, I hope you will understand why the Three Waters legislation is rather problematic. Now, how on earth can a fair taxation system make the Three Waters legislation redundant and unnecessary? Yeah, we will find it out. Now, first of all, I'd like to show you some principles of taxation and the main role of taxation. For this I will use a presentation and hopefully it's gonna work too. So, what is the role of taxation in general? Now, the main role is actually very simple: funding state services, nothing else. The state has to collect money so that the state can provide various services. That's all. There are 2 smaller roles which were relevant in the past. Influence economic activity. Now, what is this? When a government intends to help an industry to grow inside the borders, it can impose tariffs on overseas and foreign traders on their goods, which might be produced at a lower price. And these kind of tariffs defend the economy, the economic activity inside the country. Actually, it is not the population of the country that pays for these tariffs. It is the importer who pays them. It's these kind of tariffs were normally abolished during the 1980s, 1990s with the free trade agreements. Now there is a third one, which is also small in terms of the possible amount of money what governments can collect by these consumption taxes. For example, the fuel excise and the alcohol excise duty is also a kind of consumption tax. It influences the consumption just to reduce it, to protect the population in a way. But like I said before, the main role of taxation is simple: funding state services. Now, how should these funding be organized? First, when a state service can be paid directly, collect the money directly. What does this mean? For example, I am as a migrant here in New Zealand. I paid quite a lot of times immigration duties and levies just to get my visas and eventually my residency. But also when I visit a healthcare provider, I usually pay visit fees. That's the direct payment for state services. Nothing magical here. It's that simple. When the services can be measured, they can be paid directly. Now, there are other services which can be paid directly, but they do not appear on a regular basis. For example, the universal state services, healthcare, pension, job seeker support, they are not regular. No one knows when they will need those services. Now, this is when the state should organize various insurance schemes, so the insurance fees will eventually cover the costs. It is most important in healthcare because the healthcare system should maintain large capacities, assets which are not used all the time. Radiology, for example, in 24 hours they are used probably only 1 hour in any hospital, because it is problematic to use them. But that capacity should be maintained. And why I am saying it is universal, because everyone who needs an X-ray should get it, and the service is the same. Everyone who needs dental care, the service is the same. Therefore, it is possible to organize these services into insurance schemes. Pension payment. At the moment, practically individuals can receive the exact same amount of money when they retire. So it is also a universal service. People can pay for it. Now, there are services where when the state provides them, some people might get more out of it, and some people might get less out of them. These should be funded by indirect taxes. Now, what I'm talking about is education, infrastructure, security, law and order. Why I'm saying that people might get out of more from education? Well, the case tends to be that smarter students require more time from the teachers, because outside of ordinary teaching hours, the student might ask them for additional support and help. And actually, as a teacher, it was the best moment when students came to me and asked after hours. It was always fascinating. Infrastructure is the same. We have the same roads, however, businesses can utilize them much more than individuals. Same with security. Defending a country might result higher income and benefits for businesses rather than just individuals, etc. So these services require individuals to pay progressive income taxes, and to an extent the corporate income tax is not progressive, but eventually it can be made progressive as well. The GST is consumption proportionate. Now, there is one practical advice what tax experts always say: impose the tax when payment occur, and the tax can be measured by the payment itself. It's very easy. The GST is 15% of the price of the product. That's all. Excise duty is the same. And yeah, when we buy goods, yeah, we pay them anyway. So the tax is practically just added up to the price. The progressive income tax, social contribution, yeah, when we receive our salaries, they are deducted from them. They are proportionate to them. So it's very easy to count them. Now, if we go further on, we see that in New Zealand there is no social contribution system. That is a big gap in providing fairness for the society. Now, the corporate income tax is not measured when the profits appear, but only in tax return periods. If we bear in mind all these recommendations and principles, the question arises: what on earth a payment is on which we can impose the wealth tax? If someone has a property and rents it out, the rent fees, when they appear on the bank accounts, yeah, that's an income. But that can be taxed by corporate income tax or personal income tax. But what is the wealth itself? How is it taxed? If anyone has an answer for that, let me know. But this is always the problem when the Greens raise the idea of wealth tax. Now, this tax has a critical problem. First of all, it is a tax on former incomes which were already taxed. So practically it's double taxing. But the problem goes further on. When wealth tax is imposed, all that income which served the basis of the savings that were the fund to acquire that wealth, the wealth tax imposes additional taxes each year on that already taxed income. Therefore, it is a retroactive punishment. And in general, retroactive punishment is banned in human rights regulations. Although those regulations refer to criminal actions, which means nobody can be sentenced for a crime which was not regarded as a crime when it was committed. So modifying the law retroactively would make people into a worse position. But in terms of taxing, it is kind of similar. Therefore, it raises human rights concerns as well. Now, here comes the big punchline. The property rate is a wealth tax, and it is established in New Zealand. Nobody can argue otherwise. Yeah, that is the most painful tax actually, because there is no income appearing from which it could be deducted. People should save up and pay it from other incomes. It's ridiculous. But because of its long history, it seems to be approved in New Zealand. I argue it is not right, and in the coming years there will be problems with it. Now, what are these problems? Yeah, that social class which owns properties are actually aging, the members of that class. Young professionals can not buy properties, or just at a later stage in their lives. And this is already a problem, because municipalities, local governments, should provide rebates from the property rate. The reason is simple: the pension is usually not enough to pay it. That's kind of sad, but this means the basis for collecting rate payments is actually decreasing. Now, there is another problem. What is the aim of the property rate? Actually, it is to provide public lighting, roads within towns. The roads in between towns are provided by the state, and mostly the water assets, the water infrastructure. And that is the funny part, because the Three Waters is about that. And there's another problem. Water services, as state services, could be metered, so they could be charged directly. So all the argument that the Three Waters would save up rate payments actually redundant, because rate payments shouldn't serve as funding for water services. No, I argue that water services should be charged directly. That would inspire saving the water. It's easy. Okay, stormwater cannot be measured. That's part of the infrastructure. That should be funded from indirect taxes. Practically, income taxes should be redirected to local governments in a larger proportion. And there is another problem. In the future, the housing intensification regulations will result in situations where, let's say, on one section there will be 6 flats, because a 3 stories building might have 2 flats on each stories. 6 flats, 6 households, and water consumption is proportionate to the number of people living in a property. But the price of the property will not be sixfold on any section. Let's say the price of the property will be twofold. So the basis to impose the property rate is actually not growing proportionately with the number of people living in that property. So that will cause tensions in providing water services. Now, these are the main problems with the taxation system, and I give the camera back. We have a guest here. Miss Mittens arrived. She might hijack the whole presentation, but yeah. Oops, she is fighting. She is fighting for attention. Okay, so I told you she would arrive at a stage sometimes in the future. Now here she comes. Yeah, we are fighting so she doesn't hijack the whole thing. But I have to tell one more thought. Oh my god. When tax experts are discussing the capital gains tax, that is always a problem, because I find it funny, because they usually think that the capital gains should be imposed. That's what I gather. The capital gains should be imposed when the price of a property increases, and the increase should be taxed. Now, the same question arises. Where is the actual payment, the income that appears due to the rise of the property price? It's nowhere. When the property is traded, that's profit, the difference between the purchasing price and the selling price. Now that is taxed with the bright line test. If someone owns a property longer than 10 years, it is tax-free. Now, in this form, capital gains tax does exist in New Zealand. Well, however, if we impose capital gains tax only on the increase of the price, which is just an assumed or presumed fictitious increase, yeah, the government might collect fictitious income, but that's a ridiculous thing anyway. So this is it about the taxation system. I hope I made it clear why the three waters legislation is problematic, and I hope that the presentation wasn't completely hijacked by Miss Mittens. Thank you for watching.